Ho ho ho, how's it going? Today we're going to be talking about One Piece 1069, and it was a crazy chapter, to be honest with you, and there's a lot to be said about it. So we're going to get right into it. First of all, I want to talk about the cover story, and I'm actually going to talk about this for a decent amount of time. I don't ever cover the cover stories too much, but there was some interesting stuff this chapter with the cover stories and things like that. For one, right, there's now some other guy in the picture. I think he died in Whole Cake. I heard that from someone. And so he was one of the underworld bosses. But I don't... So this is obviously a flashback to Mads, right? So Mads was more of a pirate ship as well, was it? But what an interesting thing about this is, right? So they talk about a philanthropic endeavor of loan shark King Lufield. Right? That's what it is, basically, yeah. But Mads was supposed to be a pacifist organization. And that's interesting to me. Because obviously you got Vegapunk at the helm who wants to create all this great stuff. But I also think, and as I've said before, that we're going to see a version of Judge that is less a dickhead and more of a nice guy. Now obviously he's probably still going to be a dickhead to a degree because it's Judge, right? But I find if they're going to pull their resources together, there must be an interesting idea for it. And I'm looking forward to it personally to see where they go about it. I think what might happen is, right, so Judge was a good dude, you know, he got to know Sora or something and he became infatuated with Sora. They got together, they were, you know, a happy couple, whatever. And then whatever happened with Mads drove him insane, right? He was like, the government chose Vegapunk over me. How could they do that? I am the greatest scientist to ever live, right? And then he got obsessed with his scientific research to a degree that kind of changed him and kind of messed with his whole sense of self, right? And changed him into this terrible person we see in Whole Cake. And it was like a gradual thing. I think that's going to be very interesting. Because maybe he was a more serious but still kind-hearted scientist. Like Vegapunk's a really goofy fella, right? He's a real One Piece-ified scientist sort of deal, right? He has this giant ass head and he wants to make these really wacky inventions and he has this like massive island of weird shit. Like, come on, dude, right? He's the stereotypical One Piece character, really, in the sense that he's wild in that regard, yeah. But we have so much focus on, like, what would you say, inventions for scientists and stuff in the One Piece world, that I feel like Judge kind of lost it, you know what I mean? When he wasn't picked for the Marines and he wasn't picked to be this, like, super special scientist and he kind of went off the rails. It'd be interesting as well to see if he's maybe not in charge. He wasn't originally part of Germa at all, maybe Sora is the actual person who is from Germa lineage, and then Judge kind of took control of that. He went a bit AWOL, took control of that, took advantage of Sora, and that's kind of what he started to go off the deep end. I'm really excited to see where that goes, and if we're gonna get some more Mads flashbacks in this cover story. Maybe that's how they tie in Vegapunk's backstory. We're talking about getting Vegapunk backstory, but what if that's all just gonna be in the cover story? You know what I mean? I think that'd be an interesting way to tie it in, tie all the Mad stuff in. We get to see what happens. But I'd say Queen and Caesar were like the mad duo out of the two. You know, Judge and Vegapunk were somewhat reasonable, and then Caesar and Queen were just out of this world insane. I think that's what they're gonna do with that. I think that's where they're gonna go. But I'm excited to see, because obviously they're not too good of people either, because they're being funded by a mafia boss. You know what I mean? Big man with a cigar. Like, when I first looked at it, I didn't read the text and I thought, man, did Judge just get beaten by like an older looking fucking Beige? And that would be cool as well if Beige just came back and kicked the shit out of Judge. That shit would be cool as well if we get to see that, but it never will happen. But on to the actual chapter though. Now, this chapter was really good, but it was a very action heavy chapter. There was a decent bit of lore dropped. There was stuff about devil fruits, which is really, really exciting. That changes the entire story forever, right? Because the whole idea of devil fruits, right off the top, is basically, if you can imagine an idea or want an idea for the future of humanity, it manifests into a devil fruit. So, for example, I say all humans from now on where Spurs Santa hats, right? The Spurs Santa hat fruit is gonna spawn or some shit. So it's basically just imagination, right? Everything is imagination based. Everything in this world is based on people's wills and what people want. So everything links back to the will of people. And that is an exciting idea that I think will be pushed on. But you know what's even greater about that? Is that it pulls on both sides of a argument that we have a lot, which is science versus religion. Because science tries to prove that everything has a reason, everything is reasonable, and that's how we make the world function, whereas religion is all belief based. And they have that same argument, but instead of religion, the beliefs that we form, like let's say people believe in the Greek god of Zeus or lightning powers or stuff like that, or the power to control the sea, it comes in the form of a devil fruit. People become those gods, have those abilities, you know, the ability to turn into a dragon. All these beliefs manifest because of people's wills and the combined want for something. It manifests into a willpower, into a fruit, which then gives a physical form, which I think is fascinating, especially if elaborated on in an interesting manner. I love that idea. I do also think that means a water fruit exists or something like that, bro. There's no way, if a fruit is based on imagination and being able to imagine things and a controlled amount of will, like a lot of people have a want for something, or there's like, you know, there's a want, there's a faith in it. The ability to turn to water has definitely come across at least a couple of thousand fellas. Like, come on, bro. You're telling me, like, even current devil fruit users aren't thinking, bro, if I could turn into water, this should be hype, right? Or like the Marines, everyone's thinking that, straight up. And so there has to be a water fruit or a sea fruit. Even what I was saying earlier with the ability to control the sea, Emu probably has that fruit. Let's be real. But yeah, it's a fascinating idea, really. And I love to see how Oda tackles this. We're probably going to get more detail about it. We're not going to get any more flashbacks because the Oda basically clearly said that Vegapunk knows the theory behind it, but he doesn't know any of the lore behind it. Which I think is good, because it means you can have more reveals in the coming chapters with the final saga ramping up. But you also can give us tangible stuff to think about throughout the coming chapters, which I think is great to see, right? And obviously we got the Lucci fight. We got it was like really cool, because I think it basically makes one of my videos that I made recently invalid about him using both gears, gear 4 and 5. Because it seems like he can just pop into it whenever. He doesn't really have any qualms about using it. Because to be honest, it didn't look like he needed it against Lucci. I'll just double check. But yeah, they clashed and stuff and things like that happened, but he didn't seem to need it against Lucci, right? It didn't look like a tough fight. He looked more angrier than anything else, right? And he was just kind of messing around with Lucci, you know. He clashed with him originally, then he sort of he was literally messing around the entire time. But I think the next chapter is going to be very, very interesting for two key reasons. Number one, we get to see what like Luffy taking something seriously to a heavier degree than he did with Kaido, because someone was harmed with him in that form. Because Luffy was taking the Kaido fight seriously, but it felt like he was kind of more nonchalant in the Kaido fight, because Kaido was already damaged. You know, Luffy kind of got a massive boost. You know what I mean? And yes, bad shit happened, but it didn't happen when it was in the form. When he was in the form, he was in full control. Kaido was still a threat, and he is still probably, I would say, able, if they went from the start where they were there, Kaido might have still been able to win. But I think because we didn't see Luffy get angry in that form, his joyful ability awoken at that time, so it kind of overtook him. The only time we see glimpses of him getting angry is when Kaido's making that speech and Luffy has his fist down from the sky and he's like, you know, I'm gonna make a world where all my friends can eat or something, you know what I mean? And he makes that big speech and he punches down. You could argue he's angry there, but I think this would be interesting because he saw someone get harmed to a heavy degree that not that he cares about, but he respects because they were helping him out, right? And so he's gonna, like, you know, he was like a battle axe, and it'd be nice to see Joy Boy angry and see what happens there and how it might be handled. I'm really excited for that. And then obviously Lucci is just not taking no prisoners, which is what I wanted Kaido to be. I wanted Kaido to take no prisoners. He monologued a decent bit, which I was okay with because they were really fantastic monologues, but he took prisoner. Man, he messed around. Kaido messed around way too much. Kaido always gave off this vibe of someone who doesn't mess around, right? But he messed around. His kill count is like 0 at the moment, besides Odin, and he was already boiling alive, bro. You know what I mean? So it's like, what is he doing at this point in time, bro? Like, even Guernica, the Blue Scarf CP0 member, looks like he's still alive. And that really sold me on Kaido a lot more. And I don't know what they're going to do. Obviously, the Scabbards died. Some of the Scabbards died, which, you know, helped a lot with Kaido. But still, it feels like even though Atlas isn't dead, like, Lucci didn't take no prisoners. He just did that attack straight away. No talking, no nothing. And the thing is now, it could be a lot of nostalgia for NS Lobby, even though that was only 2 years ago. I actually found a message with one of your mates. It was not December 2020. That's when I caught up. March 2020, March 4th, 2020 was when I started watching One Piece. So yeah, that was pretty cool. And I caught up. So it's not nostalgia. It's not that long ago, right? But I do think Lucci was kind of what I was expecting Kaido to be, right? A little more of what Kaido was, but like, he didn't take any shit. He just got actions done. He didn't say shit. He got people killed. When he wanted to kill someone, he did it. No, he's not checking. He's not like monologuing. He's not giving reasons. He's not failing. He's just doing the job. And I think that's going to make Lucci a very interesting antagonist in this arc, even though he can't compete with Luffy. Because if he gets to someone before Luffy gets to them, they're done. There's no chance for Luffy to catch up. Right? And I think that's going to be really interesting, in my opinion, and how Kuma's going to play into this. And what's going to happen in this arc as a whole, because it's hard to talk about this arc when you think, how is it going to end? How is it going to play out? I have no idea. No one here is a threat for Luffy right now. Although, Kizaru is coming to town, so we could get a really, really good fight with Kizaru and Luffy. Oh my god, yeah! Oh, I just thought about that. We're getting Kizaru versus Luffy. Let's go. Let's go. Oh my god. Kizaru versus Luffy. Oh yes. Yes. Okay, that's some good shit. That is some good shit I'm excited for. We better get that. He's going to be the main antagonist. Oh man, let's go. Yes, this is perfect. It's like a repeat of Sabati, where Luffy couldn't do anything and he let his crew get taken away. But now he has that power to protect them, and he'll fight Kizaru. Yes! I love it. I do love it, especially after we saw how easily Shanks took care of an admiral, having Luffy fight Kizaru and maybe being a little more even than it was against Shanks. Like, not too much more even, because we don't want Kaido to be outshined. But then you can argue different things with Kaido. That's the thing, right? The more this story goes on after Kaido, the way Kaido was defeated and not having it clearly stated that, you know, obviously he was tired and he was exhausted from all the fighting against other people and stuff like that, and he didn't get any rest. Luffy got food and rest, and he got an form awakening that seemed to have boosted everything about him. But if Luffy handles Kizaru way too easily, then we're going to be like, alright, well, if Luffy struggles against Kizaru, then you could easily argue, well, if Luffy's struggling against Kizaru and he's comparable, if not stronger than the Kaido, right? Well, then we're gonna have a thing where it's gonna be like, well, could Green Bull have beaten Kaido? Because it's like, oh, what's going on here? And then obviously Shanks' top 1 debaters will be mad. We'll be mad happy, especially with the top 30s coming up, which we have to talk about at some point. But that's what I'm saying. This Kizaru versus Luffy stuff is going to be a fine balance, and I can't wait to find out what they do with that.